Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the episode 12 of Tech Talks with Santosh. And today we have a very special guest, Sayak Paul. So, Sayak is from Kolkata, and we met through this GD program, and he's really nice person. And thanks for joining us, Sayak. Over to you. Now.
Thanks for inviting me, Santosh. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us in this late hour of 10 p.m. Also on a Friday. So yeah, really thanks for joining in. And yeah, I'm Sayak again, unapologetically introducing myself. I work as a deep learning associate at a firm called PyImage Search. I work
Mhm.
at the intersection of computer vision and deep learning, and recreationally, I like to contribute to open source initiatives like TensorFlow Hub, and so on. And of the work, I like to write technical articles, work on applied machine learning ideas, and so on. So that's
Oh,
pretty much about myself.
so it's like you are working three jobs, right? Already.
Uh, Not quite. Yeah, I mean, even when I'm not technically working, I kind
Mhm.
of code or read some
Uh-huh.
interesting papers, or I am a Netflix nerd, so I kind of binge watch Netflix
Oh,
when I do watch Netflix. So
okay.
yeah,
Cool. So thanks for joining us again, Zach.
yeah,
And
cool. Thanks a lot.
so today we are going to discuss about like it's demystifying. The topic is like demystifying ML and AI and deep learning. So we'll be talking about ML and in case of just for listeners, right? So we'll be exploring more of ML and AI, how you can start, what are the languages you can choose, and what is deep learning, what are the different use cases which we have. So that's what we are going to cover. So let's start with first question, Zach. So of course, when someone wants to start this machine learning or AI, right? So even a buzzword. So buzzword, sorry. So a lot of people just get confused between an ML and AI. So how you will actually introduce someone new to what is an ML and AI? So how you will define it?
Yeah, sure. So if if it comes to definition of these two words, artificial intelligence and machine learning, then probably there's nothing much to distinguishing between the two. If I were to explain it in pure layman terms,
Mm-hmm.
but think of the two things like this: AI is the superset, and machine learning is like one particular kind of artificial intelligence system.
Okay.
So again, with both of these two things, artificial intelligence and machine learning, what we are trying to do is resemble some sort of intelligence, because
Mm-hmm.
often you see use cases like, okay, I have an image now, how do I get my computer to tell what image it is, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
an image of a dog, or it's an image of Ronaldinho, or it's an image of a cat, and so on. So artificially, what you are trying to do is you are trying to impose some sort of intelligence, but it's not really an intelligence. There's this other field of study which is also known as artificial general intelligence. But not to drag away too much further from the original question, let's consider artificial intelligence to be the main universe, and machine
Mm-hmm.
learning to be just a small part of it, where the ultimate goal is to be able to synthesize
Mm-hmm.
some sense of intelligence in the
Mm-hmm.
system. That
Okay.
would be my one liner.
Okay. So if someone has to start, right? So where they should start? So let's say they should start with ML and then go to AI, or like it can be anything, right? So I mean, I pick up any topic which is related to artificial intelligence, and then I also learn ML. Is it that possible, or how it will be for new learners?
uh, Obviously, I cannot speak for everyone, but I
Mm-hmm.
can share my story
Yeah.
how I got
Mm-hmm.
started. So fortunately enough, my introduction to the field was pretty interesting, because there was this undergraduate course called pattern recognition and machine learning, which I ended up
Mm-hmm.
taking during my sixth semester
Okay.
back in the year of late 2015, if
Mm-hmm.
I can remember it correctly. So yeah, I had taken this course called pattern recognition and machine learning, and as I delved deeper, my interest got
Mm-hmm.
deeper. I got more interested toward the field. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how I, got introduced to the very field of machine learning. And
Okay.
it was not artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a formal curriculum of artificial intelligence in many of the, universities. There's also even a book by Peter Norvig, which they teach at many different universities and colleges. So artificial intelligence has got a separate subject, and machine learning has got a separate subject when it comes to undergraduate studies formally. But one can definitely start with either of the two, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, there are many facets of artificial intelligence. As I had mentioned, there's this rule-based systems. There are fuzzy neurosystems and so on, which may appear to be boring
Mm-hmm.
for the newcomers. So I would suggest to start with a course that focuses on machine learning, because that can get you excited, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because let me come to another analogy here. If you are not excited about cricket, how would how do you focus on learning to perfecting that cover drive or any favorite shot of yours? You have to get
Mm-hmm.
excited to be able to dig deeper, right? So
Yeah.
if you start with machine learning in the first place, chances are highly likely that you will get
Mm-hmm.
excited first and foremost by the kind of offerings that it can provide. And when it comes to the resources, precisely, if your university or the college that you are studying at, if it's offering a, a dedicated course on machine learning or pattern recognition, I would suggest taking it. If
Mm-hmm.
it's not the case, and if you still want to really learn it, then either get started with the machine learning course by Andrew Young that's offered for free from Coursera, or start
Mm-hmm.
with the course that's offered by Fast AI, and the course's name is Practical Machine Learning for Coders. And for the viewers that are interested to really check this in, I'm sure Santosh will provide all these
Yeah.
links in the descriptions afterwards. So
Yeah.
again, just feel free to
Okay.
reach out to me as well. My Twitter
Mm-hmm.
ID you can see on the screen. If you need more details on the courses that I just mentioned, just feel free to
Mm-hmm.
reach out to me, and I'll hook you up. Yeah.
Okay. So whenever I think of starting ML, right? So there is one thing which people speak a lot, that you should be good in maths. How true is that?
There's definitely a need to dwell in mathematics when it comes to
Hmm.
machine learning, but I don't think you need to be,
Mm-hmm.
100% accurate in
Mm-hmm.
your mathematics knowledge, because I have
Okay.
seen folks transitioning from non-technical backgrounds like psychology, history, or something to core machine learning, or even political science. I have seen
Mm-hmm.
folks transitioning from political science to machine learning, data science, and so on. So as long as you have the right kind of endeavor, as long as you have the zeal and energy to dig deeper and study more and more, I think it's fine. And it's absolutely fine if you do not understand any mathematics at all, because if you are excited enough and if you are
Mm-hmm.
really passionate about your field, you will have the sufficient amount of energy to figure it all out at
Uh,
the end. That's what my
that's That's
suggestion
true.
would be.
That's true. So in ML and AI, right? So if I have to start, so I've heard that in machine learning you have a lot of libraries as well, which you can just directly start using rather than actually building your own. I think the field has grown enough so
Yeah,
to
yeah.
achieve that, right? So okay. And what is the best place where I can just find those algorithms? Maybe.
If you are willing to dig deeper into the inner mechanics and theoretical know-how of the different algorithms that we get to see, I will I will suggest uh, going through books, because they
Mm-hmm.
kind of provide a very uh, rigorous understanding of the different algorithms. So I'll definitely suggest going through,
Mm-hmm.
working out the formulas by consulting any book that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
I would more precisely, I would suggest the book from Bishop. That's an
Mm-hmm.
amazing one. And
Mm-hmm.
if it comes to deep learning, then I have the book. I'll just show you.
Yeah.
So if you are willing to understand the deep learning specific algorithms, then yeah, this should be your book. And the
Ah,
book's name is Deep Learning. It's by Ian Goodfellow et al. It's from the MIT Press, and
uh-huh.
yeah, it's like the Bible when it comes to deep learning
Oh,
algorithms. Yeah,
okay.
definitely.
That's cool. So just for our viewers, right? So in case you have any questions, feel free to actually post it, and we'll try to actually, Sayak will try to answer them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
sure.
yeah. So again, right? So continuing with the same thing. So when you come to ML and AI, you also get a lot of languages as a choice. So which one you think is easier to pick up, or which you think is like has matured enough, and we can actually utilize them into our production systems? Because I remember when ML and AI was initially, the idea was born, right? Many of the algorithms were not fit for production. If I remember correctly, you can just correct me if I'm wrong. But what do you think today? What is the language which you think is grown enough, and we can actually go ahead and use them in production?
The one word would be Python, definitely.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But there are broader implications of that answer, and here's why. From my point of view,
Yeah.
first and foremost, if you can think of something in your head, it's probably the easiest to code that out in Python for the folks
Okay.
that really know, understand Python, and it does not take rocket science as compared to it would if the languages were like C or C++.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to learning Python, you can master Python in like very quickly, at least the basic stuff.
Okay.
And again, Python is a very forgiving language. According to my understanding, the errors are kind of very reader friendly. The constructs
Mm-hmm.
are very reader friendly, and you can write real readable code in Python. Because,
Okay.
and the readability, and I specifically mentioned the readability part because, again, readability is definitely one of the most crucial components of software engineering, I would
Mm-hmm.
say. But
Mm-hmm.
it's specifically very important when writing machine learning code because machine learning is already hard enough, it's already complex
Mm-hmm.
enough. So you
Okay.
wouldn't want to, complicate your code unnecessarily. So if you are using Python, that readability part comes for free almost, but you can
Mm-hmm.
write very intricate and complex Python statements as well, which are probably not very human friendly, but you can go the other route to uh, to go beyond that complicacy and just break it
Mm-hmm.
down into small steps to make your code snippet or small chunks of code really readable. And it's all doable in Python, and researchers have been doing that. So yeah, these
Mm-hmm.
would be my reasons as to why one should start writing code in Python if they were to dwell in machine learning in the first place.
Okay. And what about frameworks or libraries? I think there are few frameworks and libraries out there. So which one you prefer, or which we can suggest, easy to learn, or maybe which has broader use cases?
Personally speaking, I have used three libraries,
Mm-hmm.
like very which are very primary and which
Mm-hmm.
are very important to the machine learning and deep learning community. For machine
Mm-hmm.
learning, I have specifically used scikit-learn. I think it's a golden one. It's
Okay.
good old, I would say. And for deep learning, I have used both TensorFlow and PyTorch. But
Mm-hmm.
TensorFlow is the one that I use for my work and also for my personal projects as well. It's nothing like I am against using PyTorch. I also use
Mm-hmm.
PyTorch in some of the occasions, but when it comes to majority, I mostly code in TensorFlow when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to deep learning and stuff like that. But each of these libraries have got their own advantages and disadvantages, like in terms of performance, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of production readiness, in terms of security, in terms of the Pythonic constructs and so on. It's
Mm-hmm.
again, it comes when it at the end of the day, it boils down to your own personal preference and the kind of experience that you have gathered with each of the frameworks that I just mentioned, and it's about sticking to either one of them or sticking to all of them. It's your own preference at the end of the day. But long story cut short here is for machine learning, I would prefer scikit-learn
Okay.
24/7 any day,
Mm-hmm.
and for deep learning, I'll have to be selective, as I mentioned. For
Mm-hmm.
my work and for majority of the personal projects that I do, I use TensorFlow. But if there's a requirement of using PyTorch for specific instances, I would not shy away from using PyTorch as well.
Okay. So So TensorFlow is, if I'm not wrong, it's by Google, right? It was created by Google first. Okay. And how mature is that? I mean, is it like still in development, like most of the technologies that's like mature enough to be used in production?
TensorFlow has grown quite a lot to
Mm-hmm.
be in production systems, and we have collective evidence that
Uh-huh.
suggests this. So yeah, definitely TensorFlow has grown quite a lot to be able to
Mm-hmm.
get into production systems and so on. And so is PyTorch, because up until 2019, PyTorch was still uh, one of the very popular libraries that was very favorite with the
Mm-hmm.
researchers and scientists and so on. But after 2019, PyTorch also started to see a boom when it
Mm-hmm.
when it came to its production, production usages and so on. So yeah, both of these libraries have grown
Mm-hmm.
sufficiently in their own courses, and they have made themselves eligible enough to get into production systems.
Cool. Okay. So another question is related to again ML and AI. So if I'm not wrong, let me just correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not from the ML and AI part. But as far as I remember, to start with an ML and AI, you need data, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, when I'm like started learning ML and AI, where should I get those data sets? So what is your source where from where you may be getting some data so where you can run your ML and AI algorithms? Maybe.
Kaggle.com would be my first preference,
Sorry, which
because
one?
Kaggle, K A
Kaggle. Okay.
double
Yeah.
G L E. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kaggle would
Mm-hmm.
be my first preference, because
Mm-hmm.
Kaggle is like the hub for
Mm-hmm.
aspiring data scientists,
Mm-hmm.
intermediate level data scientists, and also data scientists that are really scientists. They
Uh-huh.
have some professorial sort of knowledge background and so on. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely Kaggle would be my first preference. Then there's this dataset search engine that was
Okay.
made available by Google. So these
Okay.
two would be my primary
Mm-hmm.
platforms if I ever need to explore some data sets for my own personal projects and so on. But if
Mm-hmm.
a certain kind of data set is not readily available to me, then
Mm-hmm.
probably I will need to dig deeper and take a look at potential data sources and maybe
Mm-hmm.
write a scrapper in order to gather the data. So
Okay. So let's come back to that part, collecting data. So is that part of ML and AI, or it's like another field if of its own where you actually collect all those information or data and then feed to your algorithm?
it's actually both.
Uh-huh.
Data collection is definitely one of the crucial and initial phases of any machine learning engineering project.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, when we work, when we start working in a personal machine learning project, more in most of the times, we get to play with the already curated data, and data
Mm-hmm.
collection often gets missed out. But
Okay.
for any practical machine learning engineering project, data collection is definitely one of the initial and most crucial phases,
Mm-hmm.
undoubtedly. But there's this whole field of human computer interaction, data annotation, data collection, data gathering, data engineering, and so on. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I mentioned data gathering,
Ah.
data acquisition can be a field on its own, and at the same time it's also a part of any standard machine learning engineering project as well.
Oh, that's cool. So, data engineering is kind of the field which you're talking about, right? So where you get collect the data and then maybe clean the data and then feed to ML. Is that am I wrong? Am I
Yeah.
wrong or right?
uh, Most of the part you are definitely right. Again, I'm just gonna share
Huh.
what I understand of this
Mm-hmm.
field. So when it comes to data engineering, really, you would need to set up data sources. You would need to set up, data acquisition strategies. You would need to set up what personally identifiable fields you are gonna remove,
Mm-hmm.
the kind of fields you are not gonna expose to your
Mm-hmm.
downstream engineers and so on. So data engineering is all about that data acquisition part, setting
Mm-hmm.
up data stores, data lakes, and so on, from which the data can be actually pulled up and used for analysis and so on. So
Oh,
the specifically the data pre-processing and data cleaning part are often not taken care of by the data engineers. It's
okay.
generally taken care of by data scientists or machine learning engineers in the team.
Oh,
So,
okay, okay. That's cool. So let's move on to the second part of the question. So deep learning, right? So you spoke a little bit about deep learning as well, and you are primarily working in deep learning, if I'm not wrong, right? So from your portfolio, I could figure that out. So what is deep learning, and um, why it is so famous?
deep learning is famous, probably famous because it sounds cool. I'm just
Yeah.
joking, but yeah. but, again, my one liner would be deep learning is the study of representation learning, where we primarily use neural networks in order to, learn meaningful patterns
Hmm.
from data. So,
Okay.
but the main, distinguishing factor here is we only put all our focus on neural networks in order to be able to learn meaningful patterns from data. But when you see machine learning as a field, we have lot more algorithms just
Hmm.
than neural networks, right? So deep learning, it would be, faulty to say deep learning is a study of neural networks, which
Hmm.
it is clearly not. Deep learning is more about, learning differentiable functions, gradient based optimizations, and so on. But yeah, I do not want to overwhelm our viewers here.
Hmm.
So, a layman's one liner would be deep learning is a study of representation learning, which primarily uses neural networks in order to, extract meaningful patterns from data.
Okay. So what are the use cases where you can apply it? So.
Yeah, sure. So in 21st century, it's probably hard to figure out a use case that's not affected by deep learning.
Hmm.
So you asked me what are the use cases that are possible with deep learning, and I am gonna ask our viewers what are the use cases that are not possible by deep learning. And I'm not talking about, finding out prime numbers or printing out Fibonacci series and so on. I'm
Hmm.
talking about practical real use cases here that have not been affected by deep learning. So yeah, just to, create that suspense and just to hold up to that suspense and tension, let me, just enlist five of my favorite deep learning applications, which we all probably use on a day-to-day basis. First one would be Smart Compose. When we reply to any of our emails, we get very
Hmm.
meaningful suggestions and so on. Again, deep learning right there in
Okay.
conjugation with natural language understanding. Uh, Second would be autocorrect, which
Ah.
when we type stuff, our words get corrected magically. Third one would be autocomplete. Again, a
Okay.
very classic thing that we get to see on a day-to-day basis.
Hmm.
Fourth one would be Google Photos. So
Hmm.
upon a given photo, you get to see many similar faces and so on.
Yeah.
Again, a very classic use case of computer vision and deep learning. Fifth one would be when you upload a photo on Facebook, you get automatic tag suggestions, right?
Hmm.
So this person maybe is your friend
Yeah.
XYZ or
Uh-huh.
so on. Again, a very classic use case of computer vision and deep learning. So yeah. These five use cases are not like rocket science and so on,
Hmm.
but these definitely are something that we get to see on a day-to-day basis. And this all of these five different use cases that I just mentioned have been revolutionized by the use of deep learning. It's not that they were not there uh, before deep learning came, but when deep learning came, their, accuracy, their performance got just revolutionized. So that's what.
Hmm. Okay. So there is a question from Vijay. So if I have to do profiling based on facial recognition, does it fall under deep learning? Is that the uh,
To
thing?
my understanding, profiling is not a very deep learning specific concept. I guess profiling is more of a general software engineering concept. But if you are asking me if you want to profile your facial recognition model, which is a deep learning based model, probably you would need to know some deep learning specific matrices and so on, so as to figure out where your deep learning model is failing in order to be able to, analyze its predictions and make it better and so on. But profiling as a concept is not very specific to deep learning. I would rather say it's a general software engineering concept.
Okay. So to start with deep learning, you already mentioned the frameworks, right? You said you can use TensorFlow or PyTorch. Is
Yeah.
they are for deep learning purposes, right?
Yeah, mostly. So let me clear this out. So these two libraries that I just mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
TensorFlow and PyTorch, although they are used mainly for deep learning and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but they are really libraries for numerical analysis and numerical programming and so on, because their core underlying data structure is tensor, and when it comes to
Okay.
numerical methods and numerical analysis, tensor would be definitely the fundamental data structure that you would like to work with. Even when it comes to linear algebra, matrices, tensors are the fundamental data structures that you would like to work with. And both of these libraries, TensorFlow and PyTorch, provide excellent and world-class support for manipulating tensors, matrices, and so on. So
Okay.
uh, it, these libraries are more like, general numerical analysis and numerical purpose frameworks, but over the period of time they have like grown so much that people have just tagged them as deep learning frameworks, which they really are, but at their core they are also very suitable frameworks for numerical analysis and so on.
Ah, okay. So they actually have written internally all the library, all the functionality, right? So what you can say functions. So you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
just readily use it, and then you don't have to actually maybe write everything or reinvent everything again. So you just
yeah.
get TensorFlow, and then you can start writing your code. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so you get the you get the complexity as a function of progressive growing. If you wanted to have access to low level mechanics, you have that option.
mhm,
But if you want to keep things very high level and abstractive, that option is
mhm.
also there. So it again depends on you how much deep you want to dig.
Ah, okay. So there is a question from Gaurav. So let's take it. So what would you suggest a beginner, which field area should one target? Deep learning, machine learning, or computer vision? How to get started easily without getting stuck into extravaganza of AI? So what you would suggest?
Yes. If you are self-studying, which I'm guessing you
Mhm.
are self-studying, then you should enroll in a course without, you know, randomly browsing through the internet. Because if you are enrolled in a course and if you are serious enough, then it already provides
Mhm.
you with a very systematic structure that has been trusted by millions of
Mhm.
learners like you. So get started with a standard course offered from Fast AI or Deep Learning or Udacity. Get your fundamentals right, practice problems, compete on Kaggle, and then take it from there. And as I mentioned, if you're serious enough and if you're passionate enough, then your zeal and your energy can uh, take you longer than you can ever imagine. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So as I have been working on JavaScript from a long time, so what you think about TensorFlow.js?
Actually, that is something that I haven't explored yet.
Mhm.
I have I'm like an active user of TensorFlow Lite, but TensorFlow.js I'm yet to explore, so apologies for that. But
Uh-huh.
from the communications that I get from the fellow developers, I see TensorFlow.js as a very promising framework for web developers that want to make use of deep learning in their applications to make something really cool. So yeah.
So I mean, I have really seen some amazing use cases of TensorFlow JS where they can actually change the images on inside the browser. They can play with the camera and change the faces. So all those things are is like TensorFlow JS offers everything. Which I mean, sorry, you already mentioned you have not explored much, but do you have any idea? I mean, in terms of maybe the functionalities which are available in both the libraries are the same or they differ?
Usually there are some differences, because when it comes to TensorFlow JS, my understanding is you should be able to run things using WebGL and so on.
Uh-huh.
And many machine learning models are really heavy that may not,
Mm-hmm.
their original versions may not run just using WebGL, but
Uh-huh.
TensorFlow.js do have a backend capability as well. You can write TensorFlow.js code using Node.js servers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If I if I heard it correctly from the communications that I get to see. So as I mentioned, TensorFlow.js I think is a very promising framework for
Mm-hmm.
web developers that want to make use of you know deep learning based capabilities and want to integrate them in your applications. So performance wise and functionality wise and feature wise, I think TensorFlow JS provides the right kind of tools, and you know and the overall ecosystem for web developers so that they can totally make use of all the
Mm-hmm.
cool things that we get to see uh, within the deep learning fraternity. So
Yeah.
that would be my
Okay.
understanding of how progressive and promising TensorFlow.js can be for web developers.
Cool. So I recently met one of the Google developer Google advocate. So developer advocate, who works with Google. His name is Jason Myers. So he actually
Yes,
showed some pretty good demos as well. I mean, of course, virtually we met in one of the meetups. So he was able to show some pretty good use cases, and I was really wow. So he actually gave a demo where he was able to play with the camera, make changes, change his background and everything. So I think
yeah,
maybe so if there are pretty good use cases which are available there. Cool. So yeah. So we discussed about. So let's talk a little bit about this computing power, right? So whenever you talk about ML and AI, you need a lot of computing powers. Is there any thing which is available on, let's say, on maybe a playground kind of thing where I can just go ahead and play with some ML or maybe some algorithms?
collab, Google collab.
Okay. So you don't need
Yeah,
to set up your local environment.
nah.
Okay.
Google collab
Okay.
is like a pre-configured
Mm-hmm.
virtual machine that's provided by Google, and it's also powered with GPU for free. You
Oh,
you get to access Tesla K80 at least at least on a minimum level, and you can go all the way up to Tesla P100 if I'm not wrong. At least
mm-hmm.
on the free plan, Collab has a pro plan too. But yeah,
Okay.
you get to play with algorithms
Mm-hmm.
of your choice if you have already figured them out already. Yeah, Collab does provide you with a
Mm-hmm.
pre-configured virtual machine powered with
Oh,
NVIDIA GPUs, all
oh.
configured for you. Just code needs to be executed.
In case I just want to, I mean, home have my own machine. What do you think? What is the configuration which is required? What is the minimum thing which you need?
Yeah, so this is the part where I really struggle because since 2016, I mean, the year I started
Mm-hmm.
studying machine learning, I haven't really used anything locally. All of my work is based on cloud-based
Ah,
services. All my personal projects also make use of like Colab Kaggle kernels or even GCP instances and so on. So for on-premise, uh, you know, device configuration and so on, I'm not really the right person to talk.
cool, cool. So I have seen a lot of this cloud-based providers, right? So if you go to Azure, go to Google, even go to AWS, they have services related to AI, ML, even NLP. So what are those services? I mean, if these algorithms which are available using TensorFlow, what are these services they are talking about?
Yeah. So let's say you want to build an object detection system
Mm-hmm.
so very roughly what an object detector is, given an image, your
Mm-hmm.
task would be to localize localize different objects that might be present in that image, and
Mm-hmm.
you would want to label them like in the frame that you are currently seeing, I am a person and my face needs to be localized,
Mm.
and an
Okay.
object detector can do that for you. So it
Mm-hmm.
would just localize me and it would classify me as a person or something like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what briefly an object detector does. So you will not have access to an off the shelf object detector in TensorFlow. You will still need to write the object detector in from scratch, but
Okay.
the composable blocks that you would need in order to write the object detector from scratch, those blocks are provided to you by TensorFlow, right? Now, what if you wanted to have that object detector right off the bat?
Okay.
This is exactly where cloud-based services can shine on, right? For
Oh.
example, let's say if you wanted to have access to an OCR API probably,
Hmm.
and you let's say you would want to use it in your web application or in your mobile application. So cloud services provide many language bindings for these APIs, but they also provide REST APIs for these different services
Okay.
like
Uh-huh.
OCR, named entity recognition, object detection, image labeling, and so on. So
Oh.
if you are a traditional software engineer, if you are a web developer, if you are a mobile application developer, probably you wouldn't need to worry about the nitty gritties of the different machine learning models that we just talked about. You are just interested in using the service,
Uh,
in empowering your applications with these different capabilities. So this is exactly where cloud APIs can really shine.
Okay, that's I mean, thanks for answering that because I always used to doubt. I mean, if everything is available, why they have this service available there? So yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for answering that. So Gaurav has a question. I'm playing with beginner level of TensorFlow.js. It's ultimately using the lighter version of TensorFlow library, but the issues are with some heavy model trainings. I think this is
Yeah.
something Sayak already mentioned that of course whenever you'll try to do that, that will happen. And maybe this is where I mentioned right, you need a heavy machine, maybe gigabits of RAM, some GPUs available. So I've purchased a new laptop with GPU and 32 GB RAM. I'll actually try to run some maybe heavy models in later on, and I'll see how it performs, and then maybe I can answer your question if possible. What kind of machine you need?
Yeah, just to add my 2 cents here. So Gaurav, if you already know that you would be deploying your deep learning model inside a web application where you wouldn't want to run your model on server side, but you would want to run that particular model on consumer side. If you already know that, then probably it's prudent enough to proceed with that particular philosophy, that okay, my deep learning model needs to be lightweight enough so that it can run on
Yeah.
consumers
Hmm.
side, right? So if you already know that, then try to design your deep learning model in such a manner that it's lightweight and at the same time it's performant enough. So if you can already start with that philosophy, then you wouldn't need to struggle with this kind of bulkiness and heaviness. But
Yeah.
this may not apply for many of the real life situations that you may need to take care of. But yeah, it's a general philosophy that can help you design and develop lightweight models that can run seamlessly and efficiently on consumer side in the first place.
Cool. So he's asking for I think courses. I think Sack already mentioned Udacity and a few more. I think I'll just
Yeah.
add the links later on in the description, so you can go through it. So that I will do. Yep. So we are actually reaching out to the end of the session. In case you have any questions, please let them come. And meanwhile, I mean, Zach, thanks a lot for answering those questions. I think this is going to be helpful for all the beginners, including me. I'm trying to actually learn ML and AI from a long time, but and whenever I've heard about this word that you have to learn mathematics, you have to actually have good machine that supports this. So I always take a step back. But I think this is something which will motivate me to actually start exploring this field as well. So coming to the next point. So
Santosh,
is
just
yeah.
just to motivate that bit further, like
Hmm.
this myths, like you need to know mathematics to a great extent and you need to have a beefy machine in order to run your algorithms and stuff. The recent paper that I published with my senior Shourodip and one of my university juniors, Orithro, all of the experiments
Hmm.
were done in a freely available collab notebook.
Huh?
And yeah, So you can actually make use of collab notebooks to experiment. And if your idea is really strong enough, you can use all the free resources that are available in order to be able to publish something that's novel. I'm not saying it would be like very top tier or something like that, but you can definitely get started. And in order to get started, you really don't need to have a beefy machine, and you do
Mm,
not need to be a math wizard. Long
yeah.
story cut
Mhm.
short here would be that. So, yeah.
That's pretty cool. So yep. So Sayak, anything you want to promote on the channel? So we heard
um,
you are writing a lot of books. There are courses which are available. So
I don't think I have something very specific to promote here, but yeah, I would redirect the viewers that are interested in checking my work to my website.
mhm.
That's sayak.dev,
Yeah.
sayak.dev, and you can also check out the works that I share on Twitter.
Mhm.
My Twitter ID is displayed on the screen. And apart from that, I don't think I have anything in particular to promote. So yeah.
You recently tweeted about, I think there was some course or something for Manning. What was that?
Yeah.
You
So recently,
like.
Saurabh
Mm,
Chakraborty is one of my seniors, and I
mhm,
published a live project with Manning
mhm,
Publishers, and the live project deals with Text Summarizer, which is a pretty real world use case, and which is one of the classic use cases of natural language processing. So
mhm.
yeah, that like got published last week. Yeah, so feel
Okay.
free to check it out.
Okay, that's cool. So I'll just add the link into the description later on, and let me just share it here. So it was phishing website, right? If I'm not wrong, detecting phishing
Uh,
websites or
phishing phishing is not the correct one. I'm just gonna chat it out here.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm just gonna send it to you in the chat.
yeah.
So it's
Okay, I'll
uh,
just.
it's it's based on
Mhm.
a summarizer, text summarizer,
Okay.
and here's a code that's always good for a 35% discount. So if there are
Ah,
any students, so it might be helpful for them.
that's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing this. So in case someone wants to actually buy this live project course, you can actually use this and get 20% discount, as Zach said.
35% discount. 35.
35%. Yeah, that's great. So thanks for sharing, Zach. And on closing notes, I mean, do you want to add anything else?
Uh, Apart from like really thanking you for having me, I don't think I have anything in specific to share with the participants. So if this is for the participants, if at any point in time, if you are feeling the need to reach out to me, all my coordinates are there at sayek.dev. Just feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll try to get back to you.
That's pretty cool. So you can just reach out to Sayak on Twitter, and I'll also add. So you can also find him on LinkedIn. He is pretty active there as well. And there is one question for from Elise. So let's take that. Do you have any advice for developers who would like to get into data science?
Yeah. So my advice again would remain the same. If you are really interested, then start with a particular course because it already provides you with a very systematic approach. And if it
Mm-hmm.
gets excited you, if it gets you excited enough, then yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you will have all the necessary tools to pursue that excitement further. So definitely, first step for me would be to enroll in a
Mm-hmm.
popular course and then just
Okay,
take it
so
from there.
she has question like, what in case of data visualization? So can I use existing dev skills which we have? So.
Definitely, definitely. Believe it or not, when it comes to machine learning, there are lots of situations where you would need to know many functional programming constructs and so on. So if you are already an accomplished developer or a software engineer, it's gonna get easier for you because you
Mhm.
already know the art of programming, and you already know the art of writing good code. So that's gonna act as an advantage. So
Ah,
definitely, hell yes.
ah, that's cool. Thank you, Sayak. And on so we are done. So in case you have any questions, further question, you can always reach out to Sayak on his Twitter handle or LinkedIn. I'll I have already shared his portfolio link in the chat, and you can always reach out to him. And on closing notes, thanks a lot for joining us today. And next week we are not having this on Friday, so we won't be you won't be seeing me on next Friday because we are going to connect on Thursday. There is a reason behind it. Next Friday is my birthday, so I don't want it to actually spoil my wife's day because she's pretty excited whenever it's my birthday. I'm not sure for what reason, but whatever it is the reason it can be. But so we are going to have the next episode on Thursday, 12th, and we will be discussing about Flutter. So we'll be having another YouTuber, and she's also a Google developer expert for Flutter, and her name is I think Kamal. I'm not sure about the full name, but yeah, it's Kamal, and she'll be talking about Flutter, how you can start, what are the advantages, and everything. So hopefully, see you next Thursday again. Thanks a lot for joining us. Thank you, and thanks
Bye,
Sayak
Santosh.
for joining
And
us. Yeah,
thanks for having me. Yeah, bye.
yeah. Thank you. Bye everyone. Bye bye. Thank you, Elise. Thank you, Gaurav.